eyes and said, "Now, you see." Well, I didn't see because
What
I
did that
didn't
mean?
know.
On November 28, 1981, the glamorous life of actress Natalie Wood came to a tragic and mysterious end. She vanished from her yacht, the Splendor, off California's Catalina Island. Hours later, her body was found floating in dark waters, dressed in a nightgown and red jacket. The world was stunned. Officially, it was ruled an accidental drowning. Yet the circumstances never added up. Natalie's crippling fear of water, the bruises on her body, and the confused accounts of that night turned her death into one of Hollywood's most haunting mysteries. The fatal voyage, jealousy, tension, and silence. Natalie and her husband, actor Robert Wagner, were joined that weekend by co-star Christopher Walken and yacht captain Dennis Davern. What began as a peaceful getaway quickly spiraled into tension fueled by alcohol and jealousy. Reports later suggested Wagner was uncomfortable with Natalie and Walken's growing friendship. Davern claimed that after a heated argument between the men, Natalie left the deck and was never seen alive again. Hours later, her body was discovered near the yacht's dinghy. For those who knew her lifelong terror of water, the idea that she'd gone out alone seemed unthinkable. The first investigation, questions without answers. Authorities ruled her death an accidental drowning and hypothermia, suggesting she slipped while tying up the dinghy. But inconsistencies piled up. Why didn't anyone hear her fall? Why were there fresh bruises and scratches on her body? Neighbors claimed they heard a woman screaming for help, but the timeline was murky. Wagner said he assumed Natalie had gone to bed before realizing she was missing. To the public, the explanations felt hollow. The tragedy was quietly closed, but whispers of jealousy, rage, and regret continued to follow everyone aboard that night. The reopened case. Shadows return. In 2011, 30 years after her death, the case was reopened when Captain Dennis Davern changed his original story. He now claimed Wagner had argued violently with Natalie and delayed calling for help. The coroner amended Natalie's death certificate from accidental to undetermined. Once again, Wagner found himself at the center of suspicion, publicly labeled a person of interest. Although no evidence confirmed foul play, the reopened investigation reignited Hollywood's fascination and reopened wounds for everyone involved. Wagner denied all wrongdoing, but the doubts and headlines refused to fade. Robert Wagner's burden of love and guilt. The tragedy became inseparable from Wagner's life and legacy. Though he returned to acting in Heart to Heart and tried to lead a normal life, the cloud of suspicion followed him for decades. Every interview brought back the same question: what really happened? In his memoir, Pieces of My Heart, Wagner expressed deep sorrow, saying not a day passed without him thinking of Natalie. Whether guilty of more than negligence or not, he carried the burden of that night for the rest of his life: grief, regret, and an unhealed wound that fame could never cover. Final reflections and a love that never died. By his mid-90s, Robert Wagner's defenses softened. In his final interviews, he spoke not as a man accused, but as one haunted by love and loss. "I'll never truly know what happened that night," he admitted. Natalie's daughter, Natasha Gregson Wagner, publicly defended him, calling the tragedy heartbreaking, not criminal. In his last years, Wagner lived quietly, reflecting on a love that both defined and destroyed him. When he passed, tributes poured in, some remembering his charm, others recalling the mystery. In the end, the story of Natalie Wood and Robert Wagner remains one of Hollywood's greatest unsolved tragedies, where love, fame, and fate collided beneath the dark waters of Catalina Island.